Thanks for this opportunity, Jamie. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Magic Move. It's a slide transition that Jamie has helped me to put together to use in my Year 11 general class. And so the original task that we had was to create a timeline of 5 key periods in the history of Christianity. So we looked at a series of different events that took place. And we've done this task in the last 2 years as well. We just did it differently this time. And the requirements for the task were they had to present each key period on a time scale. They had to identify one key event per period and one key person per period. And they also had to show a little bit of an overview of each, a very short overview of each period, focusing on the significance of the contribution of that period toward the development of the religion itself. So that's kind of the requirements for the task. In the past, the last couple of years I've been here, we've done it on paper, A3 sheet, and that's pretty much what it has turned out to be. As you can see, there's quite a few limitations there. Some of them were very messy, some students scrunched it up, some lost it, some tore it, some pulled each other's up and ruined it, made lots of mistakes, had to scratch it out, start again. We also had couldn't put images in there, and quite often students wrote a lot of information all over the place, which was unnecessary. So it wasn't concise. So we found quite a few limitations there using the old way of doing it. Now the positives of the Keynote, and Jamie helped me with this, it was quite easy for the students to use. I struggled a little bit because I don't really use Keynote all that much, but I'm starting to learn to do it. But the students found it really easy to use. They found it quite engaging as well. They were quite into it. I think they took less time than they did previously working on it as well. They found it quite easy to correct any errors. There wasn't any cross-marking and whiteouting and things like that. The use of audio and visuals was actually quite good because some of them couldn't write terribly well as far as being generals being concerned. So they did find that substituting some of the content with audio and visuals was actually quite helpful for them. That probably engaged them a little bit more as well. They went into doing a bit of research on their own as well. So it was more suitable for general students overall. I actually found it quite good for a revision tool because we had an assessment based on this a week after, and one of the focus questions was an overview or an outline of the whole development. And they found this really quite easy to use as a revision tool, like a snapshot, just to see what it was, and the key parts to focus on. I also found it quite easy to assess them immediately as they were doing it, because one of the key periods was the Reformation, and we have Martin Luther as a significant person, and one of my students wrote about Martin Luther but put Martin Luther King's picture in there. So I could immediately pick it up and like, that's the wrong Martin Luther, and we kind of spoke about it in the class as well. So some of them weren't aware that there were 2 Martin Luthers, so that was actually quite good. So I could pick something up like that quite quickly as well. Here is one of the examples, the end products from one of our students presented as a movie in there.
Period of founding and growth of the church. Significant event, Pentecost. Important person, St. Peter. Period of Christian persecution. Significant event, persecution. Important person, Marcus Aurelius. Period of rapid growth. Significant event, Council of Nicaea. Important person, Constantine. Period of Great Division. Significant event, Great Schism. Important person, Pope Leo IX and the Bishop of Constantinople. Period of change and division. Significant event, the Council of Trent. Important person, Martin Luther.
So So as you can see, they could actually put audio which added to whatever they had written, and it was quite concise. And just looking at this final slide, they could just do a quick revision as well, and I could have a quick look as well. I'm going to pass over to Jamie because he's the expert on how to actually create this magic move. I'm still working on how to do it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right, so magic move is actually, looks quite confusing on the surface, but actually underneath it's quite simple. What it is on Keynote, if you've got multiple slides and you've got objects and text, it essentially moves things magically from one position on one slide to another position on the second slide. So it automatically puts in a transition so you can see the movement from one slide to the next. But the objects on the slides have to be the same, essentially, for it to move it. So it looks cool, basically. This example that Judy's done, I suppose, is a nice way of capturing a process or a timeline, a sequence of events. There's little text in it, but the reason why we decided that is so students could articulate their understanding other than just writing it all down. We didn't want the timeline to be full of text and too heavy, and we wanted to break it up so it was quite, I suppose, chunked down all the information. It was all broken down into one particular piece of information per slide. One thing I think is really important about, if you're going to do this, about Magic Move and about setting something up like this in Keynote, is the instructions. So I said to Judy that I think as well, that the main thing you need to do if you're going to do something like this is give students really clear guidelines of how much text you want them to put on the slides, where to put the audio on the slide. So there could be a little placeholder where you drag an audio icon, for example, or recording. And also what to do with the instructions after they're finished as well. So delete the slide once it's finished, the instructions slide. So Judy's version is quite clever as well, because what she's done is we decided to have it submitted as a video file. So what the kids do is just tap on the three dots at the top, save it as a video, and insert that into Sector. So it was all captured in one particular video rather than a Keynote presentation. So that's why I prefer Keynote as well, because you can essentially save it as a video file. So I'll just show you what it looks like on here. Find it. Okay, so what you do is, as I said, instructions are really important, so it's a very step-by-step approach for the kids. Another thing you can do as well, if you're putting objects and instructions on a slide so the kids don't move it, is just lock it so they can't move things around and they can't mess around with the instructions. But this is what Magic Move is. I've basically put the squares, the template where students write on every single slide. So slide 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. And between each slide, you just want to add a Magic Move transition. So on the iPad, you just tap on the slide, and then transition, and then select the appropriate transition. In this case, it's Magic Move. There's other things as well, like push and move and drop and different kind of things, but Magic Move will give you that effect of things moving from one slide to the next. So when you play it, it'll match all these same objects, because these things appear on that slide, the previous slide, and on this slide, and on the next slide, so it looks like they're moving. A couple of other cool things I thought I'd show you. How much time have we got? I don't know. Tried to do another flowchart example as well. Slightly different, but I think it's Magic Move from what I remember. So zooming in to different parts of a process. Zooming back out. So essentially just putting transitions between the slides, as I said before. And you can, again, capture concept that way as well. And then showing off a bit, but there's another example of Magic Move, a higher end one, with objects in space and moving objects on different slides to almost animate something or animate a topic. it's all done with transitions and magic move, most of it. Okay, is that it? Is that what you want me to sort of
Yeah,
do?
that's pretty much it, I think.
Okay, do you want to finish off?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Just some really quick little bits and pieces. Jamie said that the instruction page is really important to focus the students. I don't have to repeat myself every time they didn't know what to do. They could just go and look at the instruction section. They were quite clear. It did restrict them in how much they wrote, which was really important because some of them just would go off track and writing unnecessary or irrelevant things. So they kind of could really focus on the key ideas of each of the key periods, which was essential for this topic. It's a very content-heavy topic, so I needed them just to focus on the parts that we actually required for each key period. So that was really, really important as well. And I think it built their skills on being concise, which is something that I think all students need to build on because they do go off track sometimes when answering questions. So, and thank you very much, Jamie, for sitting down and spending time with me to put this together. I'm sure you can use that in a variety of different ways when you're building concepts in your own learning areas. So have a think about that. I think Jamie's put maybe not. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's not. I should be on the last one.
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay,
No.
I'll display that in a second.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Jamie.